There's an old vaudeville saying that says never follow a better comedian or an animal act, but I think they have to add don't follow a heartthrob. At least I can be a smarter, older brother. Key part older, right? If you have ever seen him ski, you know I'm older. All right, so one of the things I love about Toastmasters is that you could have some audience participation. So I'm going to ask you to help me a little bit on the first part of what's supposed to be a scripted speech. I want you to think about the people who have professional authority over your life. Okay, so professors, coaches, supervisors, spouses, and think of that individual who comes to mind as the best leader in that population. You have someone in mind? If you have someone in mind, raise your hand. All right. And for those who you don't, we're just going to wait here until. All right, come on, everyone. All right. Okay. All right. Got someone in mind. All right. So think about that person, and we're going to put that person like right over here, where we have a spot. And think about the behaviors they exhibited that they came to mind that quickly as, you know, out of all those people, that's the person who came up as like the best leader. Now, I've asked this question to people a number of times throughout the years during interviews, just to help them understand, just to help understand what they think of a good leader, and things like they listened, they cared, they helped me. Those are the type of things that came over and over with that person that was the best leader. And so when the speech that I'm giving is from the Leadership and Service, and the title of it from this book, when you do that, is Service and Leadership. And when I think about they listened, they cared, they helped, that really is what service, it's so synonymous with what service is. So the reality is the person that comes to mind and that we all know is a good leader serves us. And service really is helping, is leadership. Service is leadership. There are a number of examples of this, and some of them are some of the most powerful things that ever happened in the history of mankind. And if you think back to the Declaration of Independence, and let me just read an excerpt of the Declaration of Independence. And of course, Thomas Jefferson was the primary author, but other contributors like bon vivants like Benjamin Franklin contributed to the thing, and it was nice to see that Benjamin Franklin was there. There you go. All right, so we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I think most people, when they hear these words or they read these words, and I know I do, I always think about all men are created equal, and I think about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But I want to point out two other words in here that I think are particularly important on this topic. That all men are created equal, that they are endowed with certain inalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And although it may not have been done consciously, what it reminds us of is that this very important freedom that millions have died for to protect, right, so that we have the benefit of what we have. It's not, they didn't write that we have these rights because, like, we're the founding fathers, we're like really cool, and we deserve medical pensions, and like to be locked into our jobs for our entire existence. No, they weren't talking about themselves. They're talking about the people, the government, and this new nation, this revolutionary idea should serve. So again, it reinforces that service of others really is leadership. Another important step in our evolution as a nation came in the late 50s and the early 60s with the the empowerment and the endowment of this all people are created equal with the civil rights movement. And 300,000 people made it to the mall and listened to Martin Luther King, and here's some of the words that he shared. That I have a dream that my 4 children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. And those are probably some of the words that are most repeated from that amazing speech that he gave. But I want to point out, often people are talking about their children and their character, but let me point out 2 words to make sure that it's clear. That one day they'll live in a nation where they, right, not me, not about me, where they will live, and they'll be judged by not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. And you don't know if these things are done consciously or if it's just a natural skill of those leaders that help change the world and change our nation, that they're focused on them. And who are they? They're you, they're me. Right? So these are extraordinarily powerful messages that reinforce that service to others is leadership. But there are a couple other very important points on leadership that I think we should always keep in mind. And the second point is related to what we often hear, and this has been quoted all over the place, so you've probably all heard this before, the difference between management and leadership. Okay, management is doing things right, and leadership is doing the right thing. Doing things right versus doing the right thing. Now, it's really important to do things right and have processes and safety. And every time we get on an airplane, I'm really glad they got checklists and like they have qualified training mechanics and all that kind of stuff, right? But one of the things that when we think about this person that came to mind, in your mind as a great leader, when they're there listening, they're helping, I'm pretty sure they didn't come to mind because, like, they always follow the process. By golly, when we needed something from him, if we put in a ticket, he came to our office. No. They distinguished themselves because in difficult situations where they had to make a choice, a visionary choice, a choice of risk, that they did the right thing, regardless of the process. Because leaders, that's the challenge that they have. And if you think about the Declaration of Independence, starting a war, a revolution against an oppressive government, those leaders were taking the right decision but created tremendous conflict. When you think about the civil rights movement, a lot of times the vision that comes in is fire hoses and dogs attacking people, but they were doing the right thing, but it meant resistance. So leaders make those decisions of doing the right thing, not just, and often breaking the rules of doing things right. The third area that I think is important for leadership is, and it was nicely said in Steve's speech, just to reinforce, and this is like preaching to the choir, leaders are always communicators. There's never been a leader who did not communicate their vision to others. So think about Martin Luther King. 300,000 people showed up at the mall at the right time, in the right place, to be able to hear a speech. This is before email. This is before Facebook. This is before LinkedIn. This is before any social media. Heck, it was before really computers were really available. But they knew the place they had to be and they listened. And one of the important messages about in our role as communicators, when we communicate a compelling vision, often that people make the mistake of thinking that this person, Martin Luther King, our founding fathers, are communicating this message about leadership and that everyone else is following. The reality is, when you give a compelling message about something, other people who believe, other leaders just like you, wind up coming and standing beside you and following, but you're really going together because all of us are leaders, because we all make those decisions that have to, of doing the right thing, and there weren't people being chased by dogs and blown up by fire hoses or signing a Declaration of Independence knowing that it's a death sentence for them, because Jefferson was the leader. They were the leaders that were making that happen. So when we think about leadership, we should also always remember that the leadership is a function of making sure that we do the right thing, making sure that we're serving others and we're placing the needs of others and ahead of our own, and that we continue to refine our ability to communicate, because the leader has to be able to articulate the message, to have others come beside him and make the change that we all want. So that is your challenge as people who are being refined as leaders and being able to communicate to others. And it's going to be fun to watch. Madam Toastmaster.